Hello and welcome back to Lauren's Legends. I hope you've had a great day. It's been a long one for me, but I am excited to be here now. Today we are going to be talking about two, in my opinion, of the most haunted places on earth. The number one story is going to be about the ancient Ram Inn in Watton-under-Edge, England. The second one is going to be Poveglia, Venice, Italy. So sit back and enjoy. The ancient Ram Inn is believed to be one of England's most haunted houses, but even before the house was there were many, many stories of hauntings because the land that the inn was built on is 5,000-year-old pagan land. On top of that, it intersects where it's built at two different ley lines. And if you don't know anything about ley lines, they are believed to be spiritually charged lines that flow through many different places on the earth. If you follow them around the globe, you'll find them at pyramids, all different kinds of landmarks. And the biggest spiritually charged landmark there is would be Stonehenge. And it just so happens that if you look at a map, you can take the ancient Ram Inn and draw a straight line directly to Stonehenge. So there is a lot of a belief that Stonehenge has spiritually charged that ley line directly to that area. The building was built in 1145 AD, making it almost 1,000 years old. It was originally built to be used for the workers that were working on the St. Mary's church across the street to stay in. It was used for many years for that. It then became a brewery, and then it was another inn. In 1960, John Humphreys purchased it. He's actually the one who saved the building. When he purchased it, it was going to be condemned. They were going to knock it down, build something new there, but there was something about the building that drew him to it, and he had to save it. When he started going in there, he was married and had 3 children. Very quickly after the first couple nights of staying there, his wife told him she couldn't stay there. There was too many weird things about it. She just did not feel good, and it was foreboding to her all the time. John actually refused to leave and insisted staying there. And his wife ended up leaving him and taking her 3 daughters, but he chose the building. It has been said by many people that there was something about it that it drew him to it and it couldn't be explained. Now, as the years went by, John did so many different renovations to the home. And that is actually one of the things that people think that maybe he even stirred up more of the activity that was going on and worsened it. But he himself experienced many different things. There was one night that he was asleep in his bed and he felt a force grab his arm, pull him off the bed, and slam him into the wall. So he started actually sleeping on a couch in the lower bedroom, and he felt like there was something else there with him. So he couch surfed to another couch and ended up staying on that couch for maybe 30 plus years. But he did end up saving the building because the county found out that it was the oldest building in all of Watton-under-Edge, England, which is crazy. I went to Ireland many years ago, and seeing those buildings that were 600 plus years old and knowing how much history had walked those halls makes me think, this 1,000-year-old building, what had it seen? Well, in the 1500s, the witch trials began. And you really didn't have to do much to be considered a witch and burned at the stake. And there was a female who she had been running because they were after her, believed she was a witch, and she actually stayed at the end. And she was there when she was caught and taken out and burned at the stake. And she is still believed to be there. There are other stories that one of the old inn's daughters, she was 15, and she was either murdered or hung herself in the attic. And to this day, when people are on tours and go in the attic, some people just feel this overwhelming sense of dread and just start crying and having no idea what's wrong with them. They also have reported just feeling sick, like they have to get out of there. Now, during the time that John lived there, the entire time he was renovating. And when you're renovating, you tend to come across things. When you open walls up, You find sometimes things inside of them, and he did. And he found a lot of evidence of devil worshiping, sacrifices, pagan rituals inside of the home. There's no telling how far back they went. And there was actually a group of ghost hunters that contacted John and asked them. They had a theory that there was an underground secret room, and there is actually an underground tunnel that has been found and excavated. I struggle with that word. But the ghost hunters did come in, and they were down in the lower basement, and they were looking around and they were digging, and they found skeletons of children in the basement. Now, they weren't just skeletons of children. They had pieces of metal and sharp metal, like it had been a sacrificial ritual. So there's no telling what kind of energy that left behind. It is actually believed that at least 20 spirits haunt the ancient Ram Inn. And not just spirits, demonic things, succubuses, all kinds of different stuff is said to be there. There have been many people that have stayed at the inn overnight, which are extremely brave or stupid. And it has been said that many people that have stayed there through the night have actually been so terrified in their sleep that they have jumped out the first floor building window. Now, it is also said that the most haunted room in the entire house is a room called the Bishop's Room. Now, way back in that day, it was known that any kind of inn like this, they would leave a room and they would dedicate it to a bishop if they were traveling through. It was just a kind thing to do. So that is really why it's called the Bishop's Room. But there is said to be something very dark in there. And one time a medium was walking in and she opened the door and something grabbed her and threw her across the room into the wall. The next haunted room is the witch's room, which is dedicated to the woman that was burned at the stake. There has been people that sleep there in the middle of the night and wake up to a woman sitting at the foot of their bed, believed to be the witch. There's actually a black cat apparition that is seen, and they believe that it was her cat. So all around, very creepy place. Awesome stories have come from it. I want to go there and visit. I don't know if I could stay the night, but I would definitely like to see it. What do you think? Do you think that you could stay the night there? Please tell me in the comments below. Poveglia, Venice, Italy. This place is crazy. It's also called the Island of Death, Death Island, or Plague Island, and those names all fit very well. It is a beautiful little island that sits between Venice and Lido. There's a waterway that goes through, and it's a stronghold in the middle of it. For centuries, this island has become a place for dumping people that no one else wanted to deal with. It has been home to diseased people, dying, and dead. The first people ever known to inhabit the island was way back in 421 AD. These people were running from the barbarian Huns that were coming in the area and attacking, and they got across the water and they set up shop on this beautiful island and made it home. They actually lived there until the 13th century when the barbarians came back, and Venice decided to take it over to use it as a stronghold. So they had it as a great place, kind of like Alcatraz for us, where you can look and see all the other areas, and that's what they decided to use it for. Until the Black Plague came around, or also known as the bubonic plague. It arrived in 1348, and they used Poveglia as the quarantine colony. Now, the word quarantine actually comes from this time with them. Now, the city of Venice was not playing around. You could have a simple cold. If you had any symptoms whatsoever of not being an extremely healthy person, you were taken and you were put on that island. And it was a death sentence. It was an island of no return. This island is kind of broken up between two different sides with a canal in the middle of it. On one side, there's buildings, and on the other side, it became a burning ground because there were so many people passing away every single day, some days they were having 500 people pass away, which is blows my mind because this island is tiny, that there were that many people on it. But they had to take these bodies and across the canal, which is maybe 5 feet, 10 feet long or wide, and they were just mass burning fields of bodies. So you have to think about what these poor people were going through. Some of these people on the island weren't even sick and brought across and could just smell that all day, every day. And even in Venice, people were still getting sick. The bubonic plague was everywhere. And they had people passing away in the city. And it was so bad that they would take a boat and take those people to the burning fields. And they were just, everybody was getting burned there. The plague got better for a little while, but as we all know, it started again in the 1630s. And as soon as it started again, right back to the same thing, same place on that island. It has been estimated that 160,000 bodies were burned there. And there's no true estimate of how many people passed away on that island. Then in the 1800s, it became a poorly built asylum, more of a place of exile than an asylum. Obviously, back in that day, they didn't understand mental illnesses. Well, they were said to constantly, in the middle of the night, wake up screaming, say that they heard voices, wailing, people grabbing them. They would look out their window and see apparitions of people walking by, dark shadows, evil presences. It keeps going on and on what they have said that they experienced. Well, the doctors chalked it up to it was in their head. They actually, some of the people that were experiencing this, they would put them in locked rooms and just add to their torment. And in the 1930s, it has been recorded in many different places that there was a mad doctor that was allowed to go and practice there. And he was doing lobotomies on people with no anesthesia and horrible things that we probably have no idea about. Many people died at his hands. And he was crazy, but he randomly one day went up to the bell tower that is on the island still, and either threw himself off or some say was pushed off. Which this was crazy because he had never gone up there before alone, and just one day he finished doing one of his experiments and walked up and threw himself off. That is one of the biggest ghost stories to this day, is people who even are on a boat and go by the island say that they can still hear the bell. Now, the bell was removed about 20 years ago, so there's nothing on that island that should be able to make that noise. After that, it became a geriatric center. Nothing improved. It was still a bad situation, and that closed in 1975. The island changed hands a lot, and someone new bought it and was going to put a hospital there. And the workers went out. You can still, if you Google it or go to Google Earth, see where the scaffolding is on where they were working on it. The weird thing is they only worked on there for a couple weeks, and then abruptly everyone left the work site. I've heard different things, that they ran out of funding, or they decided that they were going to sell it, or that they couldn't stand to be on the island. When they were working and they were digging in the dirt, they came across so many people's bones, but there's no telling what they could have heard or witnessed while they were there. There's actually locals for local fishermen, which that's big through there. So many different waterways. There's a lot of life that's lived on the water through there. Going by and seeing people run across the shore screaming for help. There was a reporter that had gone into a pub and was doing a story about it. And a man walked up to him and said, I went there many years ago and I stayed there through the night, and it was the craziest thing I've ever done. I've heard things that I could never imagine being real. And he said, now am I crazy, or are you crazy because you plan to go there? There's so many different stories. It's actually closed today. You cannot go there unless you get special permission, or you get a shifty fisherman who you can pay a little extra to drive you there, but they will not go on the island. They will drop you off, and then you got to hope they come back. And one of the many reasons why these fishermen don't want to get close to the island is fishermen will still be half mile away fishing with their nets and pulling their nets up. And when they get their nets up, they're actually find many, many fragments of bone. Just to give you an idea of 160,000 people burned. That's not even talking about when the asylum was there and how many people passed away then and the geriatric center. This was back just the burning fields. You have to think all that ash had to go somewhere. And scientists have actually gone and done testing, and the soil is over 50% human ash and less than 50% actual soil. Yeah. And like I said, you're not actually legally allowed to go there. But it was reported in 2009 by a rescue team that there were, I think, like 4 guys that banded together and they snuck out there with a fisher boat and they didn't come back for them. And they were screaming, and someone finally overheard them. And when the rescue team got there, these 4 20-some-year-old men were terrified and in a state of shock. And they asked them what they had seen, and they couldn't put it in words. They had been there for a couple of hours after the night went down, and they had scratch marks on them. And those guys have never come out and talked about their experience there. And it was recorded that they did have a rescue team go out and pick them up. So it's very interesting that they were scared so bad. I mean, these guys investigating this haunted place, but they couldn't even talk about it. So again, please let me know your thoughts, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you as always for coming and listening to this, and I'll see you next time.